The Great Wall of China, a colossal serpent of stone winding across mountains, deserts, and valleys, stretching thousands of miles, visible even from the heavens. But behind its breathtaking scale lies a story of vision, fear, sacrifice, and survival. Why would an empire devote centuries, generations, and millions of lives to build a wall so vast that it still baffles the modern world? Was it merely a shield against enemies, or something far deeper, a symbol of power, control, and destiny? In this journey, we will peel back the layers of time, walk through its stones, and uncover the hidden truths, the untold sacrifices, and the legends buried within its foundations. This is not just a story of a wall, but of an empire's dream, its paranoia, and its eternal struggle to be remembered. Stay with us as we reveal how the Great Wall became more than a fortress. It became the heartbeat of China's history. Across the endless mountains and deserts of northern China, a line of stone and earth began to rise more than 2,000 years ago. Today, we know it as the Great Wall of China. But in its earliest days, it was not a single wall at all. It was a fragment of fortifications, a scattered series of ramparts built by separate states, long before China was united under one ruler. To understand its true birth, we must step back into the 3rd century BCE, a time of constant war, fear, and ambition. China then was not one country, but a land divided into rival kingdoms during what historians call the Warring States period. Each state fought not only against its neighbors, but also against tribes from the north who raided the fertile plains. The Xiongnu nomads, fierce horsemen of the steppes, struck fear into settled farmers and rulers alike. To defend their lands, some states began constructing walls of tamped earth, stretching for miles across their borders. These were the first ancestors of what would one day become the Great Wall. Then came Qin Shi Huang, the man who would change history. Known as the first emperor of China, he was ruthless, ambitious, and determined to forge a single empire out of chaos. By 221 BCE, after decades of bloody warfare, he succeeded in uniting the 7 warring states. But victory brought new challenges. His newly created empire faced constant threats from the north, where the Xiongnu and other tribes could strike at any moment. The emperor knew that if his empire was to survive, he needed more than soldiers. He needed a shield that stretched across the horizon. So he ordered something extraordinary, the linking together the old regional walls into one massive defense line. Tens of thousands of workers, soldiers, peasants, and even prisoners were conscripted. They marched into the harsh northern frontiers, where blistering summers burned their skin and freezing winters turned the ground to stone. Using little more than their hands, simple tools, and sheer endurance, they raised walls of earth, stone, and timber. Day and night, laborers hauled heavy loads up steep ridges, while soldiers stood guard against raids. The cost was unimaginable, not in money, but in human lives. Many died of exhaustion, hunger, or disease. So many perished, in fact, that some stories say their bodies were buried within the wall itself. Whether legend or truth, this belief gave rise to the wall's haunting nickname, the longest cemetery on earth. But for Qin Shi Huang, the wall was not only about defense. It was about power. It was a message to his subjects and his enemies. The emperor's reach had no limits. By connecting the fragmented fortifications into one immense line, he showed that he had not only united the kingdoms, but had also built a monument that no single ruler before him had dared to imagine. The wall became a physical representation of China itself, strong, enduring, and eternal, or so the emperor hoped. Yet in those early years, the Great Wall was far from the majestic stone structure that tourists see today. It was mostly made of compacted earth, layers of soil and gravel pressed together until it hardened like rock. In some places, wooden palisades and watchtowers were added to strengthen weak points. It was primitive by later standards, but it was enough to slow down raiders and give Chinese soldiers the advantage of high ground. Signal fires and drums carried warnings across vast distances, turning the wall into a communication system as well as a barrier. Still, the wall was not invincible. Nomadic horsemen often found ways around it, and in many cases, they simply bribed corrupt border guards to open the gates. But even when it failed as a perfect shield, it succeeded in another purpose. It symbolized the emperor's authority. It was a statement carved into the landscape itself, showing that the first emperor had the power to move mountains and command the labor of millions. For the people who built it, however, the story was very different. To them, the wall was not a symbol of glory, but of suffering. Forced into labor with little food or rest, many never returned home. Folk songs and oral traditions passed down through generations remember the wall not as a marvel, but as a place of sorrow. In one of the most famous legends, a woman named Meng Jiangnu wept so bitterly at the wall after her husband died building it that her tears caused a section of it to collapse, revealing his bones. Whether true or not, this tale captured the deep pain and sacrifice of those whose lives were consumed by the emperor's dream. When Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC, his dynasty soon crumbled under rebellion. For a time, much of his great wall fell into disrepair. But the idea he had created, the vision of a unified barrier protecting China, did not disappear. Future dynasties would take up the project, rebuilding, expanding, and strengthening it over centuries. What began as a dream of one emperor eventually became a defining feature of Chinese civilization. The birth of the Great Wall, then, was not a single moment, but a process. It was born out of fear of invasion, out of the ambition of rulers, and out of the sweat and blood of countless laborers. It was both a shield and a symbol, both protection and propaganda. In its earliest form, it was fragile, imperfect, and constantly tested. But it was also revolutionary, a structure so vast and so enduring that it would shape not only the history of China, but the imagination of the entire world. As we look at the Great Wall today, stretching across mountains and deserts, it is easy to forget its humble beginnings in the tamped earth of Qin Shi Huang's empire. But it is there in those first stones and soil that the wall's story truly begins. A story of vision and brutality, of unity and sacrifice, of how one man's dream changed the fate of a civilization forever. The Great Wall of China is often seen as a monument of triumph, an unbroken barrier stretching across mountains and deserts, a wonder admired by millions today. But behind the grandeur of its stones lies another truth, a story of war, blood, and unimaginable sacrifice. For the wall was not just a line of defense. It was a battleground, a prison, and a graveyard for countless souls who lived and died in its shadow. After Qin Shi Huang's death, China descended into turmoil. His dynasty fell, but the idea of the wall survived. Different dynasties would rise and fall, each rebuilding, strengthening, and expanding the wall as the need for defense grew. Among them, the most famous were the Han, and later the Ming dynasties. These rulers understood that the wall was not merely a structure. It was a first line of survival against enemies who struck with terrifying speed. For centuries, China's greatest fear came from the north, the nomadic horsemen of the steppes. They were skilled riders and fierce warriors, able to move entire armies across vast distances with astonishing speed. The most feared among them were the Mongols. Long before Genghis Khan united them into an unstoppable force, northern tribes had already terrorized Chinese farmers, burning villages, stealing livestock, and capturing people as slaves. The wall became the empire's answer to this endless cycle of raids. But the wall did not build itself. Behind its strength lay the suffering of men, women, and even children. Millions were conscripted into labor. Some were soldiers ordered to serve not only in battle, but also in construction. Others were peasants dragged from their fields. Still others were prisoners, criminals, or political dissidents forced into backbreaking work. Under the scorching sun of summer or the biting winds of winter, they carried stones, dug earth, and laid bricks. Disease spread quickly, food was scarce, and exhaustion killed thousands. The dead were often buried where they fell, sometimes beneath the very stones they had raised. Myths grew around these sacrifices. Stories told of workers sealed inside the wall, their bones becoming part of the foundation. While historians debate the truth of these tales, what is certain is that the wall consumed lives at a staggering scale. To many, it was less a wall of protection and more a wall of death. And yet, soldiers stationed along its length faced dangers of their own. Life on the wall was harsh and unforgiving. Garrison troops lived in remote outposts, far from their families, often with little food or comfort. Winters brought freezing winds that cut through even the thickest clothing. Supplies were slow to arrive, leaving soldiers hungry and weak. Worse still, the wall was not always effective. Raiders could still find ways around it, slipping through mountain passes or bribing corrupt guards to open gates. When attacks came, garrisons had to hold their posts or die trying. Many did. Battles erupted along the wall countless times. Signal towers lit with fire by night and smoke by day warned of incoming enemies, sending alarms racing across hundreds of miles. Soldiers rushed to defend weak points, often outnumbered and outmatched. Blood was spilled on the very stones meant to keep enemies out. The wall, in truth, was not a perfect shield. It was a line of war, a place where Chinese soldiers and northern raiders clashed again and again in a cycle of violence. Despite the suffering, the wall did succeed in slowing down invasions. It forced enemies to reveal themselves at gates or dangerous mountain passes. It allowed Chinese armies precious time to prepare. But it came at a terrible price, the endless sacrifice of ordinary people whose names history would never remember. The human cost gave rise to haunting legends. Stories of ghosts wandering the battlements, of weeping spirits heard on stormy nights, of souls who could never rest because their bodies were buried within the wall. These myths reflected the grief of generations. Families who lost fathers, sons, and brothers to its construction passed down tales that turned the wall into a symbol not only of strength, but of sorrow. During the Ming Dynasty, the wall reached its most formidable form. Built with bricks, stone, and advanced fortifications, it became a true military stronghold. Watchtowers rose like sentinels across the ridges. Garrisons stood ready with weapons, and fortified passes became small fortresses in their own right. But this expansion only deepened the cycle of sacrifice. The Ming emperors demanded more labor, more soldiers, more lives to strengthen the wall. And still, the Mongols came. At times they broke through. At times they were repelled. But always, the wall ran red with blood. For the emperors, the wall was a necessity. It was the empire's skin, the outer barrier that kept China safe. For the people, however, it was a burden. Taxes were levied to fund construction. Harvests were disrupted as peasants were dragged away from their fields, and entire communities bore the weight of imperial ambition. The wall was both protector and oppressor. Even today, when we admire its sweeping beauty across the mountains, it is easy to forget what it truly represents. Every brick, every stone, was placed by hands that bled and broke. Every mile of the wall was bought with the lives of men and women who had no choice but to serve. The wall's greatness is undeniable, but so too is the suffering it demanded. In the end, the Great Wall was never just a physical barrier. It was a battlefield, a graveyard, and a testament to endurance. It was built with hope of safety, but soaked in the blood of those who built and defended it. Its stones do not only echo with history, they echo with the cries of the forgotten, the countless souls who gave their lives so that others might be safe behind its shadow. The Great Wall of China is more than a monument of stone and earth. It is also a monument of stories. Over the centuries, myths, legends, and whispered secrets have clung to its battlements like the mist that rolls across the mountains. To walk upon a wall is not only to step into history, it is to step into a realm where fact and folklore are woven so tightly together that one is often hard to separate from the other. One of the most enduring myths is that the Great Wall is built with the bones of the dead. Millions of laborers perished during its construction, and stories say their bodies were thrown into foundations, sealed forever within its stones. This gave the wall its chilling nickname, the world's longest cemetery. Historians today believe that while countless workers did indeed die, their bodies were usually buried nearby rather than inside the wall. Yet the legend survives because it speaks to a deeper truth, the unimaginable human cost of building such a colossal structure. Another legend tells of a woman named Meng Jiangnu, whose husband was conscripted to work on the wall. When months passed with no word, she set out to find him. Arriving at the wall, she learned he had died, his body lost among the thousands buried in unmarked graves. Overcome with grief, she wept for days until her cries shook the heavens. The wall collapsed, revealing the bones of her beloved. This tale, retold for centuries, became a powerful symbol of resistance against tyranny and a reminder of the suffering behind the grandeur. It is said that even emperors feared this legend, for it revealed that no wall of stone could ever silence the voices of the oppressed. Beyond sorrow, the wall is also a canvas for mystery. Ancient travelers and soldiers spoke of hidden tunnels running beneath its stones. Some claimed these passages were escape routes for besieged garrisons. Others whispered that they were secret corridors for emperors, used to move unseen across the frontier. Modern archaeology has revealed some underground chambers and storage areas, but many of these myths remain unproven. The very scale of the wall ensures that secrets are always waiting to be uncovered. The wall was also a stage for strange sightings and ghostly tales. At night, soldiers reported hearing footsteps on the battlements when no one was there, or voices carried on the wind, speaking languages they did not understand. Fires were said to light themselves on watchtowers where no soldier stood. These stories may have been born of fatigue and fear. Isolated garrisons, freezing nights, and constant danger can easily create visions in the mind. But to those who lived on the wall, such tales were more than imagination. They were warnings that the wall was haunted by those who had died defending it. Another hidden truth lies in the wall's military genius. Though it is remembered mainly as a barrier, it was also a communication network. Watchtowers were spaced so that messages could travel across great distances in minutes. By lighting beacons of smoke by day or fire by night, news of an invasion could leap from tower to tower faster than a horse could ride. In later dynasties, the system became more sophisticated, with different numbers of flames or puffs of smoke signaling the size of the enemy force. To the modern eye, the wall is just stone, but to ancient generals it was a living network of information, a vast frontier nervous system. The myths also extend to treasures said to be hidden within the wall. Stories tell of gold, jade, or imperial scrolls sealed inside, protected for eternity. Some even believe that the wall hides entire armories of forgotten weapons, waiting to be discovered. Archaeologists, however, have found little evidence of such riches. The real treasure of the wall is not gold, but knowledge, the clues it preserves about the lives of those who built and guarded it. And yet, in some ways, the wall itself is a riddle. For centuries, outsiders wondered if it could be seen from the moon, a belief so widespread it became a global myth. In truth, while the wall is long, it is not wide enough to be visible from space without aid. But the myth persisted because it reflected something real. The idea that the wall was so vast, so incredible, that it must surely be seen from the heavens themselves. The myths and mysteries surrounding the Great Wall tell us something important about human memory. They show that people did not see the wall as only a military structure. To them, it was alive with meaning. It represented sacrifice, sorrow, pride, and awe. Its stones carried not just the weight of empire, but the dreams and fears of ordinary people. Where history leaves silence, myth fills the gaps. Even today, the wall continues to reveal hidden truths. Archaeologists using satellite images and ground surveys have uncovered forgotten sections buried beneath the desert sands or hidden in remote forests. Entire stretches of wall once thought lost are being rediscovered. Some lie in ruins, others surprisingly intact, reminding us that much of the wall's story remains untold. In the end, the Great Wall is not just a monument of stone, but of imagination. Myths of buried bones, weeping widows, ghostly soldiers, and hidden treasures all reflect the powerful grip it holds over human memory. The wall is both fact and fable, both reality and legend. Perhaps that is why it continues to fascinate us, because in its vastness, it contains not only the truth of history, but the mysteries of the human spirit. When most people think of the Great Wall of China, they imagine a vast barrier built to keep enemies out. And in part, that is true. But the wall was never just about defense. It was also about power. It was a stage for politics, a tool of propaganda, and a symbol that projected strength both inward, to China's own people, and outward to its enemies. In the shadow of its stones, emperors shaped their authority, dynasties justified their rule, and millions of subjects learned the meaning of obedience. To understand the side of the wall, we must first remember that ancient China was not simply fighting for survival. It was competing for legitimacy. Each dynasty that rose to power had to prove that it deserved to rule. The wall became a way of doing this. Building and maintaining it required immense resources, labor, materials, and organization on a scale few rulers could command. By ordering the construction of new sections or the repair of old ones, emperors demonstrated their control over the empire's people and land. It was as if they were saying, "Only we are strong enough to raise a wall that touches the sky." This message was not only for enemies. It was also for the common people, who saw the wall as proof of imperial might. For peasants living in villages, the wall reminded them that the emperor was watching over them, even if the price of that protection was heavy taxation and forced labor. For soldiers, the wall was both a duty and a warning. Loyalty to the dynasty meant guarding the wall with their lives. In this way, The wall served as propaganda carved in stone, a visible reminder that the empire was powerful, united, and eternal. But emperors also used the wall as a political weapon. It was not simply a military barrier. It was a border. By marking the line between the civilized world of China and the barbarian land beyond, the wall created a powerful psychological divide. Those who lived within its borders were part of the empire, protected by its might. Those outside were cast as outsiders, enemies, and threats. The wall thus defined not only geography, but identity. It told people who they were and who they were not. During the Han Dynasty, the wall was used to protect the Silk Road, the vital trade network that connected China with Central Asia and beyond. By guarding these routes, the Han emperors controlled the flow of silk, spices, and other goods, enriching the empire and reinforcing their power. Here, the wall became more than defense. It was an economic tool, shaping trade and diplomacy. Foreign envoys who traveled to China often marveled at its scale, returning home with stories that magnified China's reputation as a superpower. In this way, the wall itself became propaganda, its very existence sending a message to the world. This is China, vast, rich, and strong. Centuries later, during the Ming Dynasty, this use of the wall reached its height. After suffering devastating raids by Mongol armies, the Ming emperors invested enormous resources into rebuilding the wall with stone and brick. But while it was meant to stop enemies, it was also meant to impress allies and rivals alike. Visitors to the Ming court described the wall with awe, spreading tales of its size across Asia and Europe. The wall became part of China's image, a wonder that proved a dynasty's greatness. At the same time, the Ming emperors used the wall to control their own people. Heavy taxes were imposed to fund its construction, and labor conscription tore families apart. By tying so much of daily life to the wall, the dynasty reminded its people that they were part of something larger than themselves. Even those who hated the burden could not ignore the wall's presence. It dominated their landscape, their economy, and their imagination. It was propaganda not only in its scale, but in its permanence. But propaganda can be double-edged. For some, the wall inspired pride. For others, it represented oppression. The legends of suffering workers, of families torn apart, of soldiers freezing on lonely battlements, show that the wall could also symbolize tyranny. In times of rebellion, it was remembered not as protection, but as a monument to imperial cruelty. Yet even then, its size and strength reminded people of the dynasty's reach. Love it or hate it, no one could escape its message. Interestingly, the wall was not always continuous. Many dynasties built separate sections, often leaving gaps where terrain seemed impassable. But in official records, emperors presented it as one unbroken line, stretching endlessly across the land. This, too, was propaganda, the illusion of an impenetrable barrier, even when in reality it was patchwork. The wall's strength was not only in stone, but in the idea it created. The idea of a wall that no enemy could cross was often more powerful than the wall itself. The wall also played a role in diplomacy. Foreign leaders who saw its might were reminded of China's strength. Envoys who traveled along its path returned home with stories that added to China's legend. In this way, the wall was both fortress and theater, a backdrop against which the empire performed its greatness. Even today, the political symbolism of the wall endures. In modern China, it is celebrated as a national treasure, a reminder of unity and endurance. It appears in films, books, and speeches, often used as a metaphor for strength and perseverance. When leaders speak of the Great Wall, they are not only speaking of history, they are invoking its symbolic power to inspire pride in the present. In the end, the Great Wall was never just a wall. It was a statement. It told enemies, you cannot pass. It told the people, the emperor is strong. And it told the world, this is China. As much as it was a military structure, it was also a political message, written not in words, but in stone. So when we see the Great Wall today, winding across mountains like a dragon frozen in flight, we are not only looking at a defensive barrier, we are looking at the greatest propaganda project of the ancient world, a monument that served not only to keep enemies out, but to keep power in. Today, the Great Wall of China is no longer a battlefield. It is no longer manned by soldiers, nor does it echo with the horns of war. Instead, It has become something even greater, a bridge between past and present, a monument to human endurance, and a reminder that history never truly fades. Yet the wall that survives today is not just a ruin of old stones. It is a living legacy, surrounded by myths, mysteries, and a struggle for survival against the erosion of time. For millions of visitors each year, the wall is a wonder of the world. They come from across the globe, climbing its winding steps, gazing across its endless horizon, and feeling as though they are standing on the edge of history itself. The wall has become one of China's most powerful symbols, a national treasure celebrated in textbooks, festivals, and films. For many Chinese people, it is more than stone, it is identity. It represents unity, perseverance, and the long struggle of their ancestors to defend and define their land. Yet the Great Wall that tourists see today is only a fraction of what once stood. Stretching across more than 21,000 kilometers, it originally spanned deserts, mountains, rivers, and grasslands. But centuries of neglect, natural erosion, and human destruction have left much of it in ruins. In some places, the wall is reduced a little more than a mound of earth, swallowed by the sands. Farmers once pulled its bricks to build their homes. Storms and earthquakes tore away at its stones. In fact, historians estimate that nearly two-thirds of the wall has already disappeared. This raises a question. How much of the wall is real, and how much is reconstruction? In places like Beideling near Beijing, large sections have been carefully restored for tourism. Their bricks are neat, their towers strong, and their steps easy to climb. But further out in the wilderness, travelers find the wall crumbling, wild, and overgrown. Here, it is dangerous and raw, a ghost of its former self. Some argue that the restored sections are too polished, giving tourists an illusion of what the wall once looked like. Others say these reconstructions are necessary to keep the wall alive in memory, to prevent it from vanishing entirely. And so, the Great Wall lives in two forms. One, as a preserved national monument, the other, as a decaying relic, slowly being reclaimed by nature. Both are real. Both tell the story of survival. But beyond its physical survival, the wall carries mysteries that still fascinate scholars. For centuries, legends claimed the wall could be seen from space. Astronauts have since clarified that while it is difficult to spot with the naked eye, its vast line can indeed be traced with modern technology. Other mysteries lie in its construction. How did ancient workers transport massive stones across impossible landscapes? How did they build in deserts, where it was scarce, or on cliffs where no road led? Archaeologists continue to uncover answers. Mud and reeds pressed into bricks in the west, granite slabs carved from mountains in the east. The wall is not uniform. It is a patchwork of techniques, reflecting the diversity of the land it crosses. And then there are the human stories. Beneath its stones lie the bones of countless workers who never returned home. Folk tales like that of Meng Jiangnu, who wept until part of the wall collapsed, revealing her husband's body, still echo in Chinese culture. These stories remind us that the wall is not only about emperors and battles. It is also about ordinary lives, forgotten by history, but immortalized in legend. In the modern world, the wall has become more than a Chinese symbol. It is a global one. UNESCO declared it a World Heritage Site in 1987, calling it one of humanity's greatest achievements. It has inspired films, novels, and even political metaphors, often used as a symbol of division or resilience. Tourists who walk its paths carry stories back to their countries, just as envoys once did along the Silk Road. The wall, in this way, continues to connect people across cultures, just as it once divided them. But with fame comes challenges. Tourism brings millions of visitors each year, which helps fund preservation, but also damages fragile sections. Graffiti, litter, and overuse threaten the wall, as much as time and weather do. Preservationists face a dilemma: how to protect a monument that stretches thousands of kilometers. Some sections are carefully restored, but others are left untouched, hidden in remote mountains where only the bravest hikers dare to go. The wall's survival is not guaranteed. Without constant effort, more of it will crumble into dust. Yet even in its ruined state, the wall's power remains. Standing atop its highest ridges, one feels both the greatness of human ambition and the fragility of human life. The wall is a paradox. It was built to last forever, yet much of it is already gone. It was meant to keep people out, yet now it welcomes the world. It was a symbol of imperial power, yet today it belongs to all humanity. Perhaps that is its greatest legacy. The wall teaches us that empires rise and fall, but their dreams can live on. It shows us the cost of ambition, the lives sacrificed, the landscapes reshaped, but also the possibility of achievement when people unite for a purpose greater than themselves. It reminds us that history is not just written in books. It is carved in the earth, in stone, in the very mountains we walk upon. For the people of China, the wall continues to inspire pride. It is often called the dragon of the earth, winding across the land as a guardian of heritage. For the world, it stands as proof that human determination can create wonders visible across time itself. And so, as the sun sets over its watchtowers, casting long shadows across the mountains, the wall whispers its story, the story of survival, mystery, and legacy. It asks us to remember the past, to honor those who built it, and to protect what remains. For those stones may crumble, the spirit of the Great Wall endures, eternal as the horizon it spans. The Great Wall of China stands today as both a monument and a mystery. Weathered by storms, scarred by wars, and eroded by centuries, it remains an unbroken reminder of humanity's will against all odds. For some, it is a tomb of forgotten soldiers. For others, it is a masterpiece of engineering. But for all of us, it is a bridge to the past, carrying whispers of emperors, warriors, and workers who gave their lives for a dream of unity and survival. As we gaze upon its endless stones, one question lingers. Was the wall built to protect China from the world, or to protect the world from China? The answer may forever remain hidden in its ancient stones. But one truth is certain. The wall endures, just as the human spirit does. If you want to keep exploring the secrets of history, don't forget to subscribe, share, and join us again, because the past still holds stories waiting to be told.